hit record here and we will get locked and loaded. So let me go ahead and pull open my notes here real quickly and we can get things kicked off. So this call is essentially a call that I wanted to run a couple of weeks ago. And I'll be honest, the timing of this call is not ideal. Really, we probably should have this call back in December because a lot of the stuff some stuff should have already happened with this over the winter break. But we're having it now, so hopefully there's still a lot of opportunity in front of us moving forward. And this is basically an assistant manager recruitment and development training call. I'll tell you guys what, just from personal experience, this is something that I have a lot of confidence in how to set up and how to execute. And also, for a lot of you all, like there's different levels of managerial experience. You know, the first step is really learning how to run an office by yourself. And I'll actually say this just for a long time, we were kind of, as a management team, anti new managers having assistant managers because sometimes it can really just throw you off and take you away from what you're supposed to do. Like in my general opinion, and this is why I want to be careful too. If you're a new manager, like you're not going to have an assistant manager this summer running interviews for you or doing like office functions, nor do you want them doing any of that too. Like you're going to have enough work to do. Just try to manage yourself and run your own office and all the reps that you have on your team, let alone try to manage another assistant manager on your team. But there is a next level for like the Mason Linkers on the call and people, Jonathan, that are now stepping into, a new layer. It is a whole new ball game, managing reps versus managing assistants and learning how to kind of step into that. Rob, you've got assistants coming out this summer. I mean, all of you pretty much on this call either do or you're getting ready to. And all of you have different levels of experience of working with assistant managers, but there really is a process from it. And I know, from my personal experience, especially once you have a lot of managers on the team, they really can be the make or break in your success of certain summers. And I've had some summers where, I've done this really, really well, and it's led to us having record-breaking summers and extremely high performance of summer times. And I've also done, I've made enough mistakes with this, doing it enough times that I also have a good idea of some things that are pitfalls and things to avoid and what not to do. And this is an entirely, and this is just for you newer managers that are hopping on the call and getting this training. It's good that you're hearing some of this stuff and just know that like, it is a completely new learning curve once you get to this level of the business. But this is eventually where you get out. And for any district managers on the call, even if it's not happening this summer, this is eventually what you want to build out to. You don't really want to be the one doing every single thing in your office forever. You're not a business owner, by the way. If you're a manager is really what you are when you're the person doing every single function. Now, the beginning stages, you have to do that and you need to do that too, because you got to be able to own every single section before you start delegating it. So there is a process to delegating things properly. There's a process to developing people properly. And that's what we're going to go over a little bit on this call. We won't dive into too much of like how to manage them. This is more so about how to recruit and how to develop assistant managers going into the summertime, whether you have AMs or not right now. So we will dive right in and feel free to take a lot of notes on this call. And as I would, and also we'll have hopefully some space for some Q&A as we go through this as well. So first thing I want to just review is just the purpose of an assistant manager. Okay, and exactly what is an assistant manager supposed to do and what we want them doing during the actual summertime here. So first thing is number one that I'd be putting down to your notes is, and really when I think about an assistant manager, they're supposed to do two things. Okay, impact CPO and impact recruiting. Impact sales, impact recruiting. Okay, that's really all they're there to do. Impact sales, impact recruiting, and plus the other nuances and maybe help around some office functions like assistant stuff or admin stuff, and then, lighten your load a little bit maybe and help support the culture of the office. But it's really CPO and recruiting. And there's two most important things, okay, in any assistant manager is that they can sell personally and that they can bring PRs into the team, recruits. That's the two biggest things. Now, other things in the office that should be happening is if they're assistant manager, they should probably be setting PRs. It's another way to impact recruiting. But outside of that, I mean, I would just, when you're looking at people, even when you have, a 3K, a 6K rep, I'll tell you guys what, like Eddie just hopped on the call, when Eddie was, with me this summer, we broke the record I had two guys, Eddie and Gabe Torres, that we've been training and prepping the whole year. But two of the guys that came in that single-handedly, like without that, we would have sold half as much as we did, if not less, was Carlos Pelayo and Gabe Campo. And Carlos Pelayo was like the previous summer, literally he was a rep that came in to maybe 2 or 3 team meetings the whole summer long. I saw him a couple times, barely knew the kid, sold like, I don't know, 8 grand, over a couple weeks. That was pretty much it. I don't even remember why he was in and out of town. I don't even really remember what the deal was, but he wasn't really around that much. I just remembered him being as like a sharp kid that I was like, hey, this kid's a sharp kid. He's actually a senior at St. Brendan. Dude, if we can get him on the team and he can get PR, like literally, and this is again, in the way, in terms you want to be thinking about it. I wasn't thinking, does he know managerial skills? Is he going to be able to run interviews for me this summer? I was just thinking like, hey, could this guy be a good guy to have on the team, and can he get other people on the team? If he is, then I want him as part of our assistant manager team going out into the summertime. So he came in as an AMI, but that list that he brought in, like we had more recruits from St. Brendan that summer than any other summer I've ever worked in the business. We had like the office was just filled with St. Brendan and Columbus school, high school, which is all, outside of Eddie and Gabe or Gabe Campo and, Carlos Pelayo, which were like scoop ups, that came into the summer. No training, no preparation, just kind of like we're there last summer, kind of brought them in and into this summer too. And then, you might have some people that you've been actually working with and developing throughout the fall and spring, and they can assist you in some more managerial duties. But I'd be thinking about CPO and recruiting. And really, again, and that's just what I want to say is you might have somebody like, if you have a rep that worked with you for a couple weeks last summer, but they were cool, they sold like 3 grand, maybe they didn't even sell that much, but you're like, no, they could be a team builder. Like, even if they didn't sell so much, can you like give them some sort of incentive to come back and be a team builder with you for the summertime? That is valuable. And here's the reality is just get them in the door, because here's the thing is they're going to start the job that summer. And a lot of times, I mean, one of a couple things is going to happen. They're either going to start the job, they're going to recommend a bunch of their friends, and maybe they don't sell and they quit after a couple weeks, but number one, that's still going to be a really valuable kickstart to you for the summertime. Like assistant manager PRs, this is the one thing I took away when I was a branch. I had a call with Ty Lopez, who after my first branch summer, he was the #1 branch that previous summer. And it was all of his assistant manager team. He had this first, I remember it was like the first training class that I ran, we went out and popped like 30 grand, the first training class as a branch. Because I had like 10 freaking studs in training. They were all my assistant managers PRs. And if you can start the summer with that, then you're already off to the PR race. What usually happens as a branch is the first 4 or 5 weeks, you're just trying to get some sharp kids in the door. And then you get them in the door, hopefully you retain them, and then you build a team around them. If you're starting square one, your first training class with a bunch of studs from your assistant managers, it's a whole different ball game. You're a month and a half ahead of everybody else. Not even if it doesn't matter about sales performance, but you've worked your way into the networks to start the summer versus, finding those networks in June and trying to amplify them from there. So, I think it's valuable. And again, maybe they quit, maybe they end up kicking a lot more ass and they get more time to team, more culture. They've matured a little bit and they actually go out, and I've had that happen too. I've had both situations happen, by the way. Some people I brought in, stayed around for a couple weeks, didn't really work out too well, but it did help us kickstart our summer. Other people came in, they gave it a shot, and they really kicked ass and became a leader and became a branch manager the next summer. So if you can get somebody in, it's worth your time to get them in, even if they weren't like the best recruit or the sharpest person that previous summer. And I'd be thinking about who did I have from my top schools or top networks, or who do I have in my network currently that I could recruit into one of those roles. So CPO and recruiting. The other thing is, can they sell? Can they perform? Now that's the ideal situation. Again, I'll take someone that can't sell because we can train them on how to do that. But if someone had a lot of sales performance success, last summer, I want them on that team too. And by the way, if you're a branch, like this is what I'm saying. If you have an assistant manager and all they do is help you with some social media recruiting, and they just were a good sales rep, and you just put them on AM pay to do literally nothing else in the office, but you just put them on 1% AM pay, like it's worth it for you to just have another point person in the office that you can point to that's leading the way with sales and can help you build the culture of your team. Because when you're starting off and you're new, like you're the only one in your office. So you have to really find those people, develop them, and then you have people to point to in human trophies. It's helpful to have another human trophy already in your office when it's not just like you promoting something and there's no one there yet. So I start off with that. Second thing is the ideal assistant manager mentality. Now, again, this is the ideal. It's doesn't always work this way, but the ideal scenario is that this person is, anyone that's an assistant manager should be excited and focused about branching the following summer. That should be their mentality going into it. Okay. I had a little exchange with Jonathan a little bit earlier too, because he was talking about some of our assistant managers, and I told him, literally, I think I was coming back from the airport on Sunday, and I was like, yeah, by the way, we want all of our assistant managers to be excited about branch. Okay. Or at a bare minimum, if they're going to be on our staff, they need to at least be open to the idea of it. Okay. The worst thing that you can have in your culture for your office is an assistant manager that's like not excited about branch, or even worse is like anti-branch or doesn't want to do it. They're not going to be a good leader in person to be able to promote and build up. And the second thing is the number one reasons why someone should be an assistant manager is to set themselves up for a exciting branch manager opportunity. And I just told him, like, after all the summers I've done this, assistant managers that do not want to branch next summer usually quit in the summer. Okay. Like literally, if I go back through all the years, every single time I have assistant managers quit, it's the ones that didn't want to branch. The ones that stay around are the ones that wanted to branch. And it's not about branching or not, by the way. This is really going back to the most important thing, which is being connected to vision. Your people stop being connected to vision, they don't really, like, if things get tough and people aren't excited, aren't connected to a vision, they quit. That's just it. If it's not easy, if there's a challenge and there's no vision, they leave. If there's a challenge, but they're connected to vision, they will persevere through it. They'll find a way. They'll fight through it. They'll keep pushing. That's why people push during SC2. They have a vision for what's there for them, pushing through their fast start. That's why reps quit after their fast start, because they don't have a vision. So again, assistant managers, if they're like, it's in July, shit's tough, things aren't working out, the office isn't performing so hot, and they're like, I'm not even doing this next summer. I'm going to quit at the end of the summer. Why don't I quit now? Why do I even finish it? Why don't I have the rest of my summer off? That's what goes through their heads. Okay. People that are excited about building something long-term for them. So you really want them to be excited about long-term vision, about at least at a bare minimum, what this summer can do to set them up. That's the ideal, not always happening, but that's the mentality that you want to be able to instill into your team going into the summer. And again, I think it's just important to have them, gosh, this light is so bright. I think it's important to have them at least open. I've got like 3 lights out here. At least open to the idea of branching. So then let's talk about quickly ideal staff structure. Most of you all, 90% of you all on this call will not be in this way outside of, Jonathan, Rob, I know you got some assistants, Mason might be able to pull this off. Lindsay, you might be able to do this. So you want it, it's you plus 2. Okay, you plus 2. You want 3 people running your office max. Okay, now this is, again, this is further development. So again, for half of you all, this is kind of irrelevant, but maybe future planning is you want 3 people running your office, meaning all the responsibilities, 90% of the responsibilities of functions of running interviews, sales, coaching the team should spread between 3 people tops. Okay. And I'll just tell you this, my best summers, and that means, so if I'm a BM or a DM, it's me plus 2 other managers. At one point or another, if you're like a Mike and Bromwitz, right, or something like that, or if I'm a pilot, right, for me, it's Jonathan plus 2 other AMs. Okay, there's 3 people that are running the office and the majority of the operations of the office. As soon as you go beyond 3 people, things start to get diluted. Okay, and this goes like me and Eddie summer, was it 2018? No, 2019. After 2018 summer. 2019. I had probably the most talented and honestly well-trained and prepped up assistant manager teams I've ever had. Literally every single assistant manager that I had was at 40 or 50 grand going into the summertime. There's some of you all on this call that aren't even at that in your branch in your district. This is all my assistant manager team was all at 40 to 50 G's going and there was 8 of them, and all from my best schools, best networks. It was a good team, really good team. We crashed and burned that summer. That was the first summer in 4 years that we went backwards instead of increasing. And a lot of it just to put some blame on myself, was the structure that we had was there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Too many people. Well, as soon as you get too many people with responsibilities delegated, all right, you're going to run this function, you're going to run this interview, you're going to run this day of PDI, you're going to do this function on this, like it turns into a lack of ownership where everyone's like, I thought you were going to, oh, I thought you were going to do that. And there's just a lack of drive and also a lack of communication on like what's going on with what reps. Reps just stop getting calls like, oh, I didn't know that person. Like, where's this person teaming? I don't know. I thought no one called them. Oh shit. That just happens a lot on bigger staffs. So it's really got to get narrowed down. I think also Eddie's not his head in 2018, that summer. Okay. Another funny thing is we went out with 4 assistant managers. Okay. It was me plus 4 going into the summer. And honestly, we sucked for about a month and a half until one assistant manager quit, another assistant manager quit. And then I got stuck with Eddie, Rob, and Lauren. And it was, Eddie plus 2. It was only 3 people then running the office. And as soon as that happened, magically the office started to perform and started crushing it again, and by the way, too, it was like, and this is just an example. It wasn't even, these guys are on the call. No offense to the team. It wasn't the most talented team in the world. Eddie had a lot of success. Rob was at like 6K going into that summer, and had been around for like 6 months. And Lauren was like at 12K and been around for like a year. And like, it wasn't like the most craziest talented team, but it was a good team. And once that happened, all 3 of those people got really committed and we're locked and loaded and we're all on the same page and the same wavelength. It's hard to have 7 people on the same page and the same wavelength. Easier to have like 2 or 3 people. When we broke the record that summer, it was me, Eddie, Gabe Torres. We were 3 people running the office. That was it. So that's the ideal structure. Now, so it's you plus 2. And then the next layer is part-timer AMs, or it's just people like filling in the gaps. So 3 people run the office. Everything else extra is supplemental, meaning it's extra. There's a core group of people running the office, and those people support with extra functions that quite frankly couldn't get done by the bigger group. Not the main functions that you would run as a manager. You don't delegate those. Right. So like when you get assistant managers, one of the common things and this is where people mess up. You'll see district managers that do this over and over again. They get a staff, they delegate a bunch of stuff, the office starts performing, assistant managers quit, they're back at square one, running everything again. Okay. Then they try to delegate stuff. Like, you don't have assistant managers to like get rid so you don't have to do stuff and you have less work on your plate. Really, in the early stages of your career, you should keep the exact same amount of work on your plate. The first thing assistant managers can do is so that you can do more, because reality is when you're the only individual, you can only really run like 8 to 9 interviews a week. A high performing office should be running 12 to 13 interviews a week in the schedule. So you don't give them your interviews, you add in more interviews to the schedule for the second recruiter. So now they're running extra interviews that you couldn't have ran before. Like, that's the first step, is you add in stuff to like make the schedule bigger, not to like delegate your activities and spread out now you who are the best person and spread it out among more people. Make the schedule bigger as extra. Hey, you don't really do a great job of Friday PDI because you're swamped as a branch manager. So you have an extra person to help out with it. Not, hey, I'm going to hand over my PDI from my reps to you, and I'm going to have you do a good job and confirm all people for Sunday and Wednesday so I don't have to do it. It's like, it's all extra stuff. So the same thing with U plus 2, that the next layer of people is like extra. They're doing the extra activities, extra tasks, extra support. And then finally, just AMIs, which, the goal there is like, again, if you had 16 people on staff, right, you probably have U plus 2, probably another, 4 to 5 part-time AMs, and then another 8 assistant manager interns in the deck who are the next people in line. And all they're doing is probably setting 5 PRs a week and selling. It's really just like sell, do your job at a high level, and maybe help out with a couple little recruiting activities or just support the culture of the actual office there too. So that's the ideal structure. Most of you all are not going to have that this summer, but that's what it's important to know, like in business, where you're going. One of the things that I think, again, just for our future district managers out here is, and I talk to this about this all the time for entrepreneurs, really, it's just in our business, but in any business, the number one problem that I see when people start a business or company or an office is that they don't start with the end in mind. It's like, all right, I got this office. I'm going to run for the summer. All right, now I need to go to the next level. So I'm going to run. I want to get to this, 500K a year, 750K a year. Now let's try to go for $1 million. You should start building your office this summer as if you're going to build $1 million organization. Had a call with, I actually had some time with Kyle Lopes when I was in San Diego. Kyle Lopes did, I don't know, he did 620 grand this summer in new business as a branch. And for those of you guys that didn't know, he did 300. I thought he probably had to break the record. I don't know if he did or not, but he did like 380 grand this fall in new business. Okay. My biggest fall in new business, I think, is like 150 grand in new business, 175 grand in new business. Mike's is like 200. And he's been one of the top performing managers. He did like 380. I mean, he did $1 million in his first 9 months of opening up an office. He has an assistant manager team. Okay, Kyle, one of the things, just quick takeaways for younger managers. And by the way, Kyle is someone that's been around the business for a long time. He's kind of earned his way in many regards. He sold $1 million as a student manager. Okay, and then went up and up in an office. But he's like, hey, he just told people straight up, hey, this is my first time doing this. Like basically, he graduated from Columbia University, which is a pretty prestigious university, chose to be a district manager. And his mentality was like, yeah, I'm either going to do this or I'm going to go work for a startup. So if I'm going to start this office, like I'm going to act like I'm working for a startup. Like I just opened a startup office, which means he's like, yeah, I'm working like 80 to 100 hours a week, just like I would have if I went and got recruited for that startup I was going to go work for. That's exactly what I was going to do there. So I'm just going to do that here. And every assistant manager that I bring on my team, they're on the same page. They're working the same amount of hours. We're all have the same vision. We're all working and running this like we're a brand new startup and it's our first year in business. And that's what we're building. And he's thinking about long-term about what he wants to build there. It's the same thing when I talked about me and Jonathan, when we were talking about growth and success. And it's like, hey, the goal is not to do 200 grand or make 200 grand this year. The goal is to build the infrastructure for a multi-million-dollar company, and when you have that end in mind, the way you hire people, bring people on, paint vision for them, is a lot different. And one thing I always say too is like, is you have to have long-term vision. Your vision has to be big enough where all the people on your staff's vision can fit inside of that and they can have everything that they want inside of that vision. It's got to be big enough for that. Okay, if your vision is limited to just you and what you're thinking, you're not gonna be able to build it there. And by the way, it's different if you're a district manager. So even if you're a first-time branch, you've got to be promoting in your branch office next summer. Even if you don't know you're going to go out next summer. Now, obviously, I can give my whole entire stump speech on, why you should go out for round 2. And, I did it 3 times for a reason. There's multiple second-time branches on here, and you can talk to them. But beyond that, look. Every single summer that I ran it, like the culture is different. When I branched a second time, it was a big deal. I was like, oh shit, someone branched a second time. When I branched a third time, I don't think I was like the only person that did that. But at that time, I literally at the end, you can ask Jeff, at the end of every summer, I was like, I did not commit to branching the next summer until 6 months after. Almost every time. Every year I was like, yeah, I don't know, I'm going to be here next summer. And then it ended up happening that I was. But the thing is, that never affected my ability to develop people and give them vision for long term, because I was like, I'm thinking about them. I'm talking about the organization that I want to build. Regardless of whether I'm here, I'm excited about what I'm creating, what we're building, and I'm creating them opportunities. Regardless, it has nothing to do with me running the Metro Miami office again next summer. But I'm painting vision for what we're going to do this summer and what's going to happen in years to come. So you have to have vision that you're painting for your people. They have to have long term vision. And that's part of, I think, just, again, it's more a mentality thing, but this goes into the whole recruiting and grooming process of your people. And again, starting with the end in mind with your people and the way that you bring people on, the way that you structure things, and really think about the long-term vision. Build the infrastructure first. The worst thing that you can do as a manager is try to delegate tasks too early or give them your jobs. Their job is not to do your job. Once you get to a point where you are shipping 750 grand a year, $1 million a year, so you can start to give them your job. You can start to delegate things. Like I always tell, the most important thing that you can do as a manager, I'm just going to give one last example on this before I move on. The most important thing you can do as a manager is set PRs. Everyone knows that. During the summertime as a branch or district, the minimum you should ever set is 20. Realistically, some weeks, especially at the beginning of summer, you should be going for 30, 40 plus weeks here. The only time, you guys know, Mike doesn't set PRs most often. And also as a manager, there was a couple of years where I didn't set PRs. And the only time that I stopped setting PRs was not because I have assistant managers to do that for me. It was when it started to become an ROI question. of what's more valuable and worth my time. Because the reality is, I set the PRs the best. If I set the PRs, I'm going to have stellar stud recruits in my office every single week. However, if I'm in the office on a Sunday and I've got 10 assistant managers in there, I can sit down in front of all of them and crank out 20 PRs. And they might set like 30 or 40 while I'm setting my 20, collectively as a group. Okay. But at a certain point, if I have enough assistant managers where I could have used that time to manage the 10 people and they can get 100 set, right? Or 120 set now, if I'm actually leading and driving the jam the whole entire time, then voila, like, okay, maybe it's not actually in my best interest to set PRs anymore. So that is like the time period where I would switch over, right? That's like the only time period where it's like literally more worth your time to manage and oversee the process than it is for you to do it yourself and do it next to them and beside them, which is, that's not a situation that anyone will be in next summer. But I'm just trying to get you guys the mentality of like how I think about when I delegate a task versus when I own the task myself. It's like, is it more worth it for me to oversee the process and we're gonna get better results because I did that? Or is it gonna be better results if I do it, lead the way, and I have a couple people watch me and follow along, and they're not gonna do as well if I was driving them, but I'm gonna own the process. So quick take there. Any questions or comments on that before we dive into spring structure, recruiting, and how to bring on people and scoop ups? All right, let's keep moving along here. I know I'm rushing through these things, so we got about 15, 20 more minutes here. All right, let's talk about spring structure. So I will send this calendar out. This calendar will be finalized after, or actually probably before our call on Thursday. So let me just go ahead and share my screen here real quickly. Okay. So January 28th, that's this upcoming Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. There's an AM opportunity call. First thing is, if you have anyone that you've already been in communications with or talking to, the first step is plug them into the divisional events. Get them on this call, number one. That's the first step of what we actually need to do, is actually get them onto this call. Okay. Next step, there'll be a couple other opportunity calls. So there's gonna be one more in February or one more in March. So if you start having conversations with people that could potentially be interested in, get them on these calls. That's like step number one. Then we'll have assistant manager training calls that will start. These dates are correct, but the topics are not. So I need to get those revised, and I'll be running a divisional training call series. So opportunity call this week on Thursday. There's a week of applications and acceptances, and then the trainings will start that following Tuesday that I will do for the division. Although typically what I would recommend, if there was other district managers present, I would recommend doing them for your own office. Okay, these are for your full-time AMs, and then you have the part-time AM scoop ups. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the actual training of what I would do there. But and we went over all the calendar dates. I think everyone here is NLG, so we already went over those calendar dates. So I'll skip us and save us some time on that. Let's talk about how to actually recruit your assistant manager team here for the summertime. So first thing I would say is let's talk about scoop ups. Number one, scoop ups. Okay, scoop ups would be people that I had last summer. So this is anyone that ran an office last summer. Here's a general scoop up process. Okay, again, this is like, I wish I would have told you guys this in December, and I did for most of you all that had staffs. But the general scoop up process is like, if they're not involved in TLA, first is just keeping the relationship with them, right? Not in a recruiting mindset, but just like, hey, is the last time you talked to him last summer? Or like what I typically do every single year is like, I even, Jonathan did this year, is just literally go through every single person that was like over 3K last summer, or any person that like, we had a good relationship with. And like, it's like, 30, 40 people, just like on Thanksgiving, send them a Thanksgiving text of just like, hey, hope you're like doing well, just kind of checking on people. A lot of times just, they don't even respond. Sometimes they respond and you get a little quick exchange, and that's it. There's no intention in it. There's no, hey, I'm going to try to do this and like, say, because by the way, that's like always what, when it's like, when someone reaches out to you and it's like, hey, how are you doing? It's like, great to see you. And then like 2 text exchanges later, they're like recruiting you for like their pyramid scheme. Hey, I just started this thing. You should join. Okay. And it's like, it's like they're reaching out to you, and it sounds nice, but they're reaching out to you to get something out of it. Right. And there's nothing even wrong with that. Sometimes that's a good, all right, great. Thanks for reaching out. But also some people are like, it just seems like you're just reaching out because you want or need something from them. So, I just make it a point to, reach out multiple times before I could ever possibly want or need something for them. Right. So it's like, I'm going out of my way. By the way, that's just a little tip, like just relationship and networking is just do that with all people in your life, not just other people. Like one thing I do, I haven't done in a while, but I just go on my messages and scroll all the way down to the bottom, like just to random messages, like scroll back like 9 months to a year, people I haven't talked to in a really long time. And I'll just go like message people and say, hey, like was just thinking about you. Hope you're doing well. Like, and people really appreciate it too. Cause like, that's the thing. It's like you're just reaching out to them. Like most people assume like, oh, there's probably something that they want, or something they're gonna reach out to me too, or tell me to check out their new music album or something they just released. I don't know. So when you're just like, oh no, I'm just like, I just was hoping you're doing well. That's it. It just feels good. And like again, you really will never know. This is like about building your network equity. You never know when you'll need those people. Same thing with system managers. 90% of the people you reach out to, they're not going to work with you ever again. But you never know. I had Alex Gonzalez, a guy this summer that literally saved our summer in Metro Miami. We would have freaking crashed and burned this summer without this guy. This guy recruited Eddie. So just to put in reference, Eddie is the PR of him, Alex Gonzalez. So Eddie is his PR. He got recommended to the job by Alex Gonzalez. Alex Gonzalez was my assistant manager this past summer after not working with us for 4 years. Okay. And I tried to recruit him the next summer and the next summer after that, and to no avail, to no success. Came back this summer, was instrumental in our office and organization, and would have been probably a BM this summer too if he didn't have grad school obligations and couldn't make it work this summer. So point being that, you just never know. And it's always good to kind of keep those relationships up. And he texted me and ended up working out. And like, yeah, we ended up doing it. So keep those doors open, keep building the relationships, even branches. You might go out for a third time and maybe, this one kid that you text and try to recruit didn't work out, but maybe he ends up working out next summer. You just never really know. So in terms of scoop ups, send like, if you haven't done so already, if you didn't hit them up on Christmas and Thanksgiving, like I would do that maybe now. So again, these are like scoop ups. I would not try to just text them out of the blue. You haven't talked to them in 6 months and say, hey, what are you doing this Thursday? You want to get on a call? Okay. Don't try to get them onto this AM opportunity call. Don't try to get them onto the one like in March, and then probably try to just like start communicating with them, build a relationship a little bit more now because you haven't spoken to them in a while. What I would have done, which is good to do, is a office reunion party over the winter break. Now, there's still time to do it. You can do it over spring break. You can do it in February, where I just kind of invite anyone that played a role last summer, bring them to a dinner, and all I'm doing is just connecting with the team, telling them, hey, we're going back out for round 2 this summer. Paint the whole entire purpose of that dinner is just to sit down with them, connect with the team, get some people have camaraderie, paint some vision for next summer, and just say, hey, like I'm looking for people on a team, like to come back as sales reps, come back as assistant managers, leaders in the office too. Like, there's no obligation, and I'd love to have as many of you guys back for round 2 if you can. It's something you'd be excited about. There's some different roles and different opportunities that you guys can be involved in. And again, just people are oftentimes in different situations a year down the road than they were when they worked with you a year ago. So just remember that a lot of people can change for the positive or for the negative. So just remember that. Okay, so I would do, again, scoop ups. So I would probably, if you haven't done so already, send out text messages to everyone that worked for you last summer just to kind of warm up the relationships. And then maybe again, like a month later, you have another follow-up. And I would kind of see where the conversation goes. So you go into it without any intentions. Okay. You go into it without trying to like get something or gain something. But some people will be like, hey, by the way, how's the office doing? Or like, what are you, like they'll just come to you. Cool. If it kind of goes into one direction or another and the conversation leads to it, and they're like, yeah, I'd actually be excited about, coming back this summer. Cool. Then get them on the call on Thursday. Most people, it's probably be a slower rolled, process with this of like just checking in with them, seeing things are going, and then maybe, a couple of weeks later, you hit them up again, restart conversations like, hey, by the way, like, what are you doing this summer? I always start with that. It's kind of like, anytime that you want someone to like do you a favor or something like that too, it's always like, hey, what are you doing? Like, hey, what are you doing Thursday? You want someone to go on a date with you. What are you doing Thursday? Before you ask, like, what are you doing Thursday night? Like, oh, I don't know. I'm going down. Perfect. I wanted to go ahead and invite you to blank, but the same thing. It's like, hey, what are you doing? What do you got going on this summer? Not like, hey, do you want to come back this summer? It's like, hey, do you have plans this summer? Number one, because it can also help you to scope out like, all right, they've already got an internship lined up. Maybe I can recruit them out of that, or they can do both. they're doing summer school classes. You have an idea what the objection is ahead of time, or like they don't have anything planned. But as of now, they're doing nothing, so you got something for them, but I kind of like, hey, what are you doing next summer? And just see where the conversation goes. Follow up with them. And, like I would just say, hey, like, yeah, I'm down. Like, let's hop on a call sometime and like connect. And that's what I would first step to do is like, if you can warm up in a conversation, I always hop on a call with them. And this should not be like, hey, I want to hop on a call with you to recruit you for next summer. Unless you can tell they're already kind of warmed up to the idea and they sound excited, then like, yeah, talk about it right there on the spot. Otherwise, I just kind of catch up with them for 10 minutes, see how life is going, see what's good. And, hey, like, by the way, what are you doing next summer? Maybe it's the phone call. Like, hey, you want to get a phone call, catch up sometime? Then do that. And then ask them like, hey, what do you got? What are your plans for next summer? It's like, well, yeah, I'm going out for round 2 or I'm going out this summer. I was an assistant last summer. Now I'm going to open up my own branch next summer. Boom, paint vision. And, so you can get something they would be excited about. Maybe playing a role in the summer as like, hey, a sales rep, or, just saying like, it's kind of a drop down, right? First level is like, get them in locked and loaded as a committed full-time assistant manager. Next level is like maybe a part-time assistant manager, maybe that has other obligations during the summertime. Maybe it's like, all right, next one will be like a sales rep, or like, hey, could you come back for SC2 during the summertime? Can you just get them locked and loaded? Like Trey Ketchum and Ben Jackson have done this year after year. They have guys that like left the business 40 years ago for SC2 that they recruited back to go drop 40 and 50 grand. They had 2 recruits one year that they brought back that were out of the business for like 3 years, came back and sold 50 grand each for SC2 each. So like, can you get them to maybe, hey, come back and help us out with the Super Bowl for the summertime? Just work with us for 2 weeks, get involved in the team. It might be, hey, maybe you can just like I've had people do this too before for us. Like they can't work. They're out of town. They're doing something else, but they're excited about what we're doing. They want to help out. They just send me some PRs, throughout the summer to get started. It's like, hey, team builder. Hey, I'll offer you like an extra $100 for anyone that you get me from, your school that you're graduating from this year. And again, if you can just build a good relationship, they're excited about helping you out. Like that's really the goals of it too. So there is a drop down with this. So you have scoop ups. And then I think everyone should have a pretty good idea right now of like, if someone's in TLA, I'm talking about scoop ups, and then if someone's been around for a while, like they've already been through TLA, they're going through this process. Okay, then you want to just start getting them trained in the spring and just follow the syllabus is typically what I recommend. But here's what I'd be focused on. All right, actually the last thing I'll hit on is training. One more thing for scoop ups. If I'm a branch that had a 6K rep over the winter break, or I have reps in my office right now that I am trying to develop into assistant managers. Okay, it's pretty much the normal assistant manager development process, which is, get them excited, paint some vision for them. There's an SLDM or some sort of AM opportunity call for them to connect with the division manager. Get them onto that. Okay, if they're around, that's probably step number 1 is get them onto the call on Thursday, debrief it with them afterwards, see what they're excited about, and then make a game plan for there. Make sure they have some vision and game plan on how they're going to earn their spot. What do you want them to be at in sales? What are they going to do for March Madness? March Madness needs to be a big part of it, because March Madness, the week after March Madness ends, is AM acceptance week for all like part-time assistant managers or anyone that basically hasn't been around since the summer of last year. So if they've been around, those would be full-time assistant managers. You start their training in 2 weeks. Everybody else, the goal is to get them onto op calls in between then. Official acceptances start in March, and then they do divisional training leading into the summertime. Okay. But I would just try to get them on the op calls, debrief them, make a game plan, make sure they're going big for March Madness. You want them to, people don't like to be handed things, especially if they're sharp. There needs to be, and this is why it's always delicate, because a lot of times as a manager, like you want this person on your team. And you also want them to earn it, because if they don't earn it, they're not really going to be excited about it either. If they work for it, they're going to be more excited. They're going to be more committed. If you hand it to them, like those are the people that, oftentimes don't even make it to the summertime. They flake off before somebody even comes around. They weren't really that committed anyways. You kind of handed them an opportunity and they'll probably hand it right away, so they want to, you got to get them excited and have enough vision for them where they're excited about putting the work in to earn it. It's one of the reasons why I was kind of worried about our division performance during the winter break. I messaged lots of our managers and I said, hey, look, I'm just telling you right now, like people don't perform over the winter break, usually don't make it to the summertime. They're just not going to earn it. They're not earning anything. If they just get handed something, they're probably not going to perform that high level. There's a point. And it's not like about like we don't need the sales, but it's just like they need to do something to earn it. If we just kind of like hand things to people, it just doesn't usually go so hot for them or for you. And anyone that's in your development there too. So Trying to think of some other things there too. So main thing is if you have assistant managers now, same thing, connect them with me if you haven't done so, over 1K, DDM networking tech, start plugging them into, TLA. If they're over 3K in sales, weekly TLA events, role play, that can be kind of some of their training, and then get them selling and performing and on the radar. The divisional gunner chat needs to be utilized a whole lot more if we're going to develop assistant managers right now. Not just from our current TLA, but from the next level, the next wave. Like that's why we have a gunner chat and also a separate TLA chat, for those people too. So last thing, just to wrap up, is the training. Okay, so for Rob, Jonathan, Lindsay, I'm going to run the divisional training in March, but for anyone that has assistant managers that are with you, ready to rock and roll kind of right now, that you're going to give acceptances to in the next 2 weeks, here's what I would be focused on. Skill set matters, but it's secondary. Literally, if I have an hour-long weekly calls with those people, and I'm going to do divisional trainings to support, I would recommend getting at least half an hour with them after that divisional training ends on Tuesdays, 5 to 6. Like you hop on with them from 6 to 6:30. You do not have to be on those calls. I will run those. I would be on with your assistant managers though. Okay. And my recommendation is that like those calls that I would run in the spring should be like, probably 50% vision and culture and team building and camaraderie. Like that's it. Like the goal for me on those calls throughout the spring is training is secondary. What I really want to do in those calls is a couple things. Is I want to build culture with the team, meaning I want them to build relationships with each other, get really connected, and like honestly talk about those calls, just build up excitement. What are we excited about for next summer? Start talking about the vision, the team that we want to create. If all that comes from those calls, they get really excited and connected to the vision for next summer, great. It's a great call, And then the only other things I want to check them on working on is how are they doing with some social media jumpstart benchmarks to support for the summer, just like a weekly kind of accountability check. And then the second thing is just, hey, is a PR list for the summer, their list of PRs. And so you guys are cutting out a little bit. Can you guys still hear me? Cool. What I would be thinking about for that list of PRs is look, they can just put 50 people on a list, or you can actually have conversations about it every single week. That's what I would be doing on those calls is like, hey, how many people do you guys have on your list now? Cool. Let's go around the horn and talk about who we added to our list this week and who the best people are. All right, hey, I just got this guy. I was talking to him in class the other day. He said he's not doing anything for the summertime. He's looking for work. He goes to one of our top schools. I want to be able to recruit him for the summertime. Good. So we're just sitting there spitballing basically of all the people we could recruit going into the summer. Like that's what you want in the mentality of. That's what I did a bad job of in 2019 is all our assistant managers were the best school and none of them brought PRs to the team. They all just kind of submitted lists and then wanted us to do the work for them. I want them working on their people. I want them being like, yo, I already talked to my boy. This girl's already free, blah, blah. And we've already got a couple of assistant managers that are doing that right now. Like they're already texting Jonathan, like I've already got people for the summertime, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to have this person and this person. That is the biggest thing. So those training calls, like vision, culture, camaraderie, and then, social media accountability. And then, who do we got on our PR list for next summer? Plus, if you got some little training things for them, PDI, manager mentality, all that stuff is extra and great, but that's the most important things to happen on those calls and what you want to be building with your team. That's why divisional is great, but office is more important, is like, are you building camaraderie with your people? Like their training matters less. The reality is half of them are going to not know what they're doing going into the summer, and you're going to have to train them anyways as things go. Okay, so the reality is like you want them. What are they bringing into the summer with? Are they connected, committed, connected to vision, all that good stuff? Lindsay?
Yeah, since I'm exporting, do personal PR lists really count for myself and my AMs? I assume it's not really a thing.
Yeah, probably not. That's the only thing too. It's like, yeah, exactly. That's the one thing that kind of sucks about being in a different territory. That's why, like, if you had been in the same territory, it would have been good, but it is what it is. I think just, talking about bring the same approach and mentality to social media. Who do you have on social media? Have you started connecting with anyone on their DMs? Who do we recruit in? Who are you looking for? Like, kind of just going through like the max preps list of like, oh, I found this person. It's a valedictorian of this school, and I just saw him win this award. Hey, I saw this person is over here and they're the football captain of their team and they look super popular. I put them on my list. Like they just follow me back on Instagram. Like that is probably kind of the next level of that too, is like doing it just with social media. Is the next best thing too, if they don't actually have PRs if you're not in the same market, or if you have assistant managers that are not from that area originally, and then I would be talking about with those people, it's like, I would be also focused on, again, PRs and recruiting and CPO and sales leadership. So I'd really be focused on CPO and sales leadership and how they're going to do that during this summertime if they're not going to be able to help in the PR recruiting model and effort. So when I'm evaluating assistant managers, ideally would like to have both. But if they can do one of those really well, they're pretty valuable to have on the team for next summer. It's better than having nobody else. So if they can't do either of those, and I would just help you with that. Like, look, if you can't sell and perform, if you can't contribute to sales capacity, if you can't help us build the team, or you're not good at saying PRs, and it's like, I can pay you $8 an hour, like an SMRA and like an admin person to help out with some like administrative stuff around the office. But like, I don't need the leader of the team if they can't do either of those two things, so cool. Questions at all before we wrap up here?
I had a quick question, kind of like what you were speaking about as those people that fill the gaps in when you speak about like AMIs. Are those like key staff?
Yeah. Head AMs, part-time AMs, sometimes a DOM or a PSM up there, AMIs, key staff / team builders. Key staff is the people we'll have a program for the summer. We'll run Saturday morning meetings during the summertime for our key staff. And that's kind of like our first level of like getting them into a leadership position. And then AMIs is a specific like leadership role that is an unpaid role, and it's not really any extra responsibility. It's just extra leadership responsibility that's expected in the office, really. And maybe they set 5 PRs a week, and then groom them into it. And we'll have future discussions, by the way, of like, this is why it's good for those of you guys that hopped on here that don't even have recruits, because this is the same stuff you want to be thinking about, hey, can I promote AMs by SE1? Those AMs, by the way, are not, hey, I'm going to have someone run interviews from the office. I'm going to have someone do PI. They ain't doing any of that. Maybe they set PRs for you. Maybe. They're just like leaders in the team. And you want to be thinking about, can they team build? Can they sell before my high level? Can I get them into assistant manager role to maybe support with that or some other miscellaneous activities? So, any other questions before we wrap up? Is this helpful, by the way? Cool. This is the first time I've actually ran one of these calls, but this is like years and years of trial and error and crushing these and development, and also really making a lot of mistakes along the way and seeing the results of those. So trying to save you guys a little bit of learning curve. And just for people that are on here that don't have AMs, it's really good that you're on here too, even though it might not be right now in the immediate, but just knowing, again, starting with the end in mind of like, what am I looking to build, and who am I looking to build and recruit and scale up and work with too. Also, just the same thing about, not burning bridges. Like, you just really never know who will end up playing a role in your organization one way or another at one point. So there's another question, Rochelle.
I was just curious about what you said about the reunion party. Do you think it would be like plausible to have that on Zoom? Would it be
I think it's better than nothing. Yeah. I think ideal is, and like, there's an element of connecting people in person and building some like camaraderie there. Zoom, it's like, it's Zoom is more businessy. It's just, it just is. You can make it more fun and camaraderie and just kind of get everyone connected and stuff like that too, where everyone's just like hanging out for a little bit and then you're talking versus just like, I'm going to run a call for you guys. I think having a Zoom reunion call is better than, doing nothing. Right. I think ideal is like physically in person, having that human connection, but, and we're lucky because we're in Florida, so that's like allowed kind of here, and people are a little bit worried about it. But I mean, literally in the rest of parts of the country, like, people wouldn't even be down to meet in person for anything. So, there are some opportunities there, but again, I think the Zoom's the next best bet. Yeah, Lindsay.
So for first year branches, I just was thinking about this for them. For scoop ups, is that going to be like between them and like their district, and like if they scoop up like old reps from the summer, or I didn't know if that was.
Yeah, generally speaking, if you're a first year branch, there aren't any scoop ups. This is just only if you've ran an office and you have previous reps. And just generally speaking, I always have every single year someone that's like a branch manager being like, "Yo, I'm trying to recruit this person back for next summer." I'm like, "Yeah, so are we to our office." They worked in our office last summer. So yes, generally speaking, on behalf of the Tampa office and my own office, if someone worked with us, like I want them for our office as a scoop. Like, yes, I'm gonna try to scoop them up to come work with us. Now, in select occasions, okay, you might be able to work out something with your district manager where it's like, hey, this person was my personal PR last summer, and they probably wouldn't come back, but they would come back because it was me. Like, I recruited a PR to the office. I was assistant manager. They quit in the middle of summer, but like I'm recruiting them back to come work with me, and they'd be excited about with that. You might be able to do that. But outside of that, like if they're not, if it's someone that your district manager could have gotten without you, they're going to take them for themselves, and they're going to be in their respective office. So just kind of a nuance on that. And same thing, I think some of you guys have special agreements with like reps being over 6K, for certain things, or you develop them over the winter break, then that too. Here's something I would say, okay, if you're in this position right now, this is the last kind of little scoop up thing. Okay, is getting your own friends right now. Like I've done this multiple years in a row. I think Mason's done this in the past. Is can you talk to some of your friends about like same question? Hey, dude. Hey, bro. What are you doing next summer? Like when I was in Tallahassee, I used to just have like a little mental list of all. Like I wasn't from Miami, so like every time I was like, who are all the Miami Chi-Phis? And I had that list in my head. And I literally was like, I'd go out to the bars and be like, hey, dude, what are you doing next summer? And I would be like trying to actively, recruit some of these people during the time period, even if they weren't working for me yet. Number one, either as a sales rep, but if I can get them in the door earlier and start them off, and maybe it's the first training of the summer. But if you can, here's something where you could make an agreement with your district manager is like, hey, Mike, hey, Andrew, if I bring you a stud PR, I have someone that I want to have as an assistant manager next summer. If I bring you a stud right now for the spring, and they go out there and crush it, and they go and have like a 10K fast start with you, could we get them? They get trained in your office, go out and perform. I'll keep working with them. We get them developed, and they go out with me for the summertime. Like Rob wants to recruit his younger brother this summer. He'll probably have him start in our office in the spring. I'll let him go out with him for the summertime. It's going to be advantageous for me in our office because he's going to start with us, and we're going to get sales. And so as a district manager, it's very beneficial for that for me, but it's also more beneficial for Rob to have him probably start sooner. So he's already a successful rep going into the summer with him versus like, hey, he's going to train him like his first training class of the summertime. So that is something that you can do. And I would talk about your district managers about like, hey, if I bring you in some people, can we get them in there and get them trained, and I can kind of groom them, recruit them, and bring them back out with me next summertime too, for the spring. So, but if they came in last summer, unless they were your personal PR, they're going to go back to that respective manager. All right, gang, it's 6:54. I'm going to go ahead and close this call down. I will post this recording.